and I'd like to welcome you to my studio to learn about monotype printmaking. Monotypes are one-of-a-kind prints where an image made with ink or paint is transferred onto a sheet of paper. Now, hence the mono part of monotype. This is a technique that yields one print only, unlike a lot of other printmaking techniques where you would print many prints from a single plate. The beautiful thing about monotypes is that there's a lot of space for experimentation, and the possibilities of the different effects that you can get really are endless. So there are two different ways you can print monotypes. You can print them by hand, or you can print them using a press. Today I'm going to be showing how to print monotypes by hand, and I'm going to show a few different techniques that will be layered up onto a single monotype print. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is give an overview of the materials and supplies I'll be using. So I have printmaking ink here. This is an Intaglio ink. It's a soybean oil based ink. It does tend to separate, so I've gone ahead and stirred all of these. That's different than a lot of traditional printmaking inks where you would never want to stir them because that would introduce air and dry them out. But with these, it's okay to go ahead and stir. I have a sheet of plexiglass that I'm going to use as my printmaking plate. Underneath, I have a non-slip pad that I cut. I'm going to be using a putty knife to mix my colors, a brayer to roll out the ink. To print, I'm going to be using a baren. Alternatively, if you don't have a baren, you can use the back side of a wooden spoon. So I'll demonstrate that as well. And the paper I'm going to be printing on is called a Tide Kozo. It's a nice thin paper. I find that when I print by hand, the thinner papers tend to pick up more detail in ink. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and mix a couple different colors for the layers. And I'm going to work with the primary colors. So for this first color, it's going to be mostly blue, and then I'm going to add some red. And a little bit. Using my putty knife, I'm going to go ahead and mix these all together. Now I'm working on a table that is coated with plexiglass. So you can mix your ink on any smooth, non-porous surface. Now to get a better idea of my ink color, I'm going to do a drawdown on a scrap sheet of paper. So I'm going to get the ink onto the tip of the putty knife, bring it to my paper, and then drag it down. To get a better idea of what I have. Okay. So I'm just going to wipe this off and make another color. Okay, so for this next color, I'm going to start with red. And just a little touch of yellow for this one. Let's try that. All right. I'm going to add a little bit more blue. Okay, let's draw this down. There we go. And then for my third one, I think I'm going to go with something a lot darker for this third ink. So I'm going to use a base of black and then add the red and blue to this. All right. Okay, so there we have it. 3 different colors for 3 different layers. Okay, so now that we have the inks mixed up, I'm going to go ahead and take some of the ink with my putty knife and bring it next to my plate to the side and make a nice bead of ink, nice line there. I'm going to take my brayer and roll it out until I have a nice even film of ink. Okay, so now that this is nice and even, I'm going to go ahead and roll the ink onto my printing plate. And I find that I get better results if I work with thinner layers of ink that I build up rather than a thick layer. Okay, this is all inked up. So this is going to be a reductive monotype, and what that means is you start with a plate that's completely inked up, and then you're going to go ahead and remove ink everywhere where you want your image to be. So I have a few different tools I'm going to use to do that. I have a Q-tip. And then I made some tools out of mat board. I cut the mat board into different shapes. And so I'm going to draw and drag these through the ink to remove it. So I think I'm going to go with like a mesh kind of image to give the feeling of something woven. And you can push down and pull up with the Q-tip to get a nice line value. Okay, so that's it for the Q-tip. I have this really pointy piece of mat board that should give me a really fine line. All right, and this one has a little bit wider. Not quite as And then this one has a few different teeth, kind of like a comb. Okay, great. So to print, I'm going to take my paper, I'm going to feel for the smoother side, and that's what's going to be facing the ink. And I'm just going to gently drop the paper down on top, and then place my hand. I don't want the paper to shift around. I'm going to take my Baron, and I'll use the Baron for half, and I'll use the spoon for the other half so we can see if there's any difference. I'm starting in the middle of the plate, and then I'm going to work my way out in a circular motion. Okay, let's try this out. So wooden spoon, the back side, I'm going to hold on to that part, and again, circular motion. Okay. See what we have. So this is our first layer, a reductive monotype. All right, now I'm going to get ready for my second layer. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up this ink and my brayer. I'm going to put a sheet of newspaper down and just roll the excess ink that's on the brayer onto the paper. And then by doing that on top of the ink field, that picked up a lot of ink as well. And just using a damp paper towel, I've got some soapy water on here. I'm just going to wipe the surface down. Okay. This will wipe too. And my putty knife. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a bead of ink by my plate. Roll out an ink film with my brayer. And then ink up my plexi. And so I just swapped out my plexi. So I'm working on a clean sheet right now. Okay, so that's all covered. For this monotype, this is going to be a mask monotype. So we're going to mask out areas of ink that will not print onto our first layer. And I'm going to use newsprint to do that. So I'm going to tear some lines. So sticking with kind of like this woven net-like image, I might have to push that down because it wants to curl up. And so again, everywhere where I place this newsprint, it's not going to print. And for a little contrast, I'll go ahead and cut some strips of newsprint as well to get that hard edge. Okay, let's go ahead and print that. So print side down. And then again, I'm putting my hand down. And using my Baron. So I noticed with the first print that the wooden spoon was comparable to the Baron. I didn't really notice a difference. I do find that this is a little easier to hold on to with the handle, so I'm going to go ahead and use this for this print. All right, see what we have. Okay, so this is very subtle. This was a very transparent ink that I had mixed up, but you can see where the mask blocked that color from shining through. All right, time for the third layer. So I have a clean sheet of plexi here. I'm going to go ahead and get this black rolled out. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more. Since this is my third layer and I have quite a bit of ink built up on here, I want to make sure that this is going to be dark enough to show. Okay, so that's all ready. So this is going to be a trace monotype. And with a trace monotype, I'm going to put the sheet on, the print, just like I did for the other two layers. But I'm not going to put my hand down because everywhere where the pressure was put, that's where it's going to print because there's nothing masking. I didn't remove any of the ink. There's ink everywhere. And I don't want to print it everywhere. So I'm going to use a pencil. So I gently place the print down. I didn't push down on it. And now I'm just going to use the tip of the pencil to make the print. So let's push the paper down onto that inked up surface. Okay. And there you have it. So you can see those darker lines, that's the trace monotype. And then with very subtle shift between the red and kind of green gray, that's where we masked out. And then that first monotype print was the reductive print where we used our different tools to scrape the ink away. Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that the video gave you a better understanding and appreciation to some of the many possibilities available with monotype.